Thank you, Chef. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve. I'm with Moe's Broadway Bagel here in Boulder, but actually we have stores in Boulder, Louisville, Longmont, and Denver. Moe's is a family-owned business. We've been around for over 30 years now. So we were only like 10 years old when we started. It started with just one little shop on Broadway, North Broadway. That's the original store. With just the family working in there, and now there's over 120 employees. And so Moe's, like most food and beverage places, most places in the food business, culinary industry, is a great place to work for anybody. Anybody and everybody can find work and succeed and thrive in the culinary food and beverage industry. Food, beverage industry. That means you'd be working with the FBI, food and beverage industry. And it's the kind of work that actually can use any and all of your skills and interests, okay? So if you have a passion for it, it's something that you can always find a whole range of activities to do. I think the most important thing with this line of work, like any, is you have to have a passion for it, right? You want to really be interested and motivated about it. But whether you have a passion to do food as a career, it's something that Chef will be able to offer you lots of knowledge about, because you're going to be eating for the rest of your life. You're going to be eating for the rest of your life many times a day. And you're going to be eating more than you do just about anything. And you're going to be using food and making food and spending money on food more than anything else, except for maybe buying a home, but probably more than a car. I call the food and beverage industry food sport. I think of it as food sport, because it is sporty. When you're in this line of work, you're on your feet, you're moving around, and you need hand-to-eye skills, right? But you're also going to have to know how to dot your I's and make sure that you're on point with the things that you're doing, whether it's the recipe that you're doing, your inventory, or even your accounting, you know. So if you're at the back of the house, making all the food and the recipes, that sort of thing, just strictly working with the food, you're still going to have to get your recipes right and all of your ingredients right. So paying attention to details is as important in this line of work as any other line of work. And one of the most important things that you could possibly have, one of the most important skills or aptitudes, is teamwork. Teamwork, because you're going to be working with other people. I know for us at Moe's, we're only as good as our team is. There's 7 stores. There's 120 people. I'm running it, but I can't be at all of those locations at the same time. The quarterback can't throw the ball that they can't catch the ball that they throw, except for yesterday. Lamar's the exception. But that does happen once in a blue moon. But it's all about your team. You're only as good as your team is. And you are that team. You're that person in the team that's going to make it good or not. There's all the different aspects if you want to go into this as, say, an entrepreneur, or, you know, making it as a career where you're starting your own business. But we'll get to that in just a minute. If you want to just focus on working in, say, the back of the house, making the food, cooking the food, being a part of that sort of team, it really does come back to working well with people and being responsible. I've always said at all the places that I've been is we can have as much fun doing what we're doing as much as we are responsible for what we need to do. So fun equals responsibility. If we're on point with everything, then let's have more fun. Let's come up with playful ideas. My background goes all the way across the board. I didn't come to the food business like you guys, where you're actually training. I came to it, spontaneously. I started with doing pop-ups, raves, and nightclubs, that kind of stuff, in San Francisco and New York, and went from there to helping some friends start up a restaurant in the city. And then from there, my family started up Mo's Bagels, and we've been doing that now for many, many decades. There's no limit in terms of what you can do in the culinary or food business. It's everything from making products that you want to produce and then sell, say, like in stores, supermarkets, or that sort of thing. You could have a food cart. A food cart is one of the ways that many people now are starting their own business. You don't need a lot of capital, a lot of money to start something, say, like with a food truck, that sort of thing. And it's a great way that you could launch whatever business that you think you might want to do. Anything from cookies to tacos, it's just absolutely limited. And there's a need for it. There's a demand for it. So it could be a great way to start your own business if that's the sort of thing that you would want to do. And those businesses have many times turned into, what they call brick and mortar, an actual building where the food is sold. Whether that's just over the counter like we do at Mo's, it's called over the counter, as opposed to, like I say, a sit-down place where people come in with typical waiter service. So it's only, like so many things, you're only limited by your imagination with what you could do with it. I literally know one guy who in New York City, he started with a lemonade stand. He actually had a lemonade stand, all right? And he made amazing lemonade, all these different kinds of beverages and drinks. Didn't cost him a lot of money to get started, and he's probably making $500,000 a year now, because that went into like a juice bar, and the juice bar went into all these sort of fancy drinks. Little by little, he just kept going. It is possible. You can do it all. You can do it all. But I will always come back to the thing of like how you work together, how you work with other people. Because even this friend who had the lemonade stand, for him to continue growing and become successful and grow more, he had to have that other critical skill, the main skill, working with other people. Just as you need to be on point with your ingredients and having everything right when you're working the kitchen, if you decide to go into the business realm of it, you have to be on point with your financial aspects, your licensing, health department, health codes, marketing, and just making sure that all the different tiers of that business are together. And again, with so many of those things, you could make it, especially your marketing, you could make it as fun as you want. One of the things that's really exciting about your generation is you guys can now work virtually, all right? Back in the day, if you were going to make something happen, you had to make it happen either on the street or in a building. Food cart, lemonade stand, your own cookie shop or restaurant. But now, with the virtual world, with your phones, if you had the idea, the motivation, and the organization, right? Then you could launch your own food thing virtually, as I think you all know. So, say you were going to do that. Well, you're going to need the idea, right? If you're going to work in real time, real space, or if you're going to work virtually, you have to have your idea, and then you have to have your strategy, to make that happen. But no matter what, you're going to need to have a plan, just a 1, 2, 3 plan. And it's just basic, even for what we're doing now with 120 employees. it still comes back to the basics. What do we need to do, and how are we going to go about getting that done? So just write it out, type it out, whatever it is. Give yourself that list that you're going to accomplish each day. And it doesn't have to be, again, for something in the food business. Whatever that inspiration is that you might have, whatever that idea is that you might have, write yourself that list, okay, that you're going to accomplish each day, and click it off. Realize the things on that list, and keep it simple. Don't overwhelm yourself with 100 things. If you could finish 1 or 2 things a day, then you can build your dream. If you could finish just 1 or 2 things on your list each day, then you can build any dream. All right? One of my dreams was when I first moved to New York, I didn't have a job. I just moved there, didn't have anything lined up. So I just grabbed a part-time job in a bookstore, right? And I also had another part-time delivering. But what I noticed was there were all these, it was during the winter time, and so there were all these homeless people, just like in Boulder, and it was overwhelming because it seemed as though, more than likely, some of them were going to freeze to death that night during the winter, in the winters of New York City. And there weren't a lot of social programs at that time. I canvassed a few of the local bars and nightclubs, checked out which ones were sort of dead, you know, didn't have any business, like on, say, a Tuesday night in the middle of the week. And I said to the guys, listen, how about I take over your space here? Your bar's empty. I've been watching you guys for about 3 weeks, and nobody's ever in here. You get maybe 15 people. I'll fill up this place for you. I'll fill it with people, and they'll buy drinks, and you'll make money. But I get to take whatever people give at the door, right? Like a cover charge, right? Whatever the cover charge is, I keep, you keep all the liquor sales. So for the cover charge, what I charged was a used, large, warm coat. That's what people had to give me to come into the bar. And I had DJs and lots of entertainment, and the place just filled up. I marketed it, right? I just got everybody to say, hey, come to this. This is going to be insane. Come to this place Tuesday night. I was able to get a bunch of my friends and their friends, and it filled up. And we got all these large, warm coats, because every one of you in here right now could go get a used, large, warm coat, and you're high school students. But you could go to the Goodwill, you go to Salvation Army, spend $3, or get one from one of your relatives, and now you're in for free, right? You've got the coat, you give it away. We got hundreds of coats, hundreds and hundreds of coats, week after week, and I was able to distribute those to the homeless people in New York. It became so successful that the city of New York adopted that idea, and now every year they do a thing that called New York Cares, based on our idea, and they give away thousands of coats to homeless people every winter. Just an idea. Everybody has those ideas. Don't limit yourself. Make your list, check it off. Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
Is Mose your family name? Is that your last name?
That's a great question. So when Mose was being made, the idea was to name the shop after one of the family members. The first thought was to use one of the grandfathers, and one grandfather's name, great-grandfather now, name was Ralph, which was a contender, and the other grandfather was Mo. And Mo is just more of a bagel name, isn't it? Yeah. And strangely, Ralph was in the food business too. He had grocery stores. He had grocery stores. If you could do anything in the food business, what would that be? If you could just make something up, would you be a celebrity chef? Would you open a restaurant? What would be a wish, if any of you could make a wish?
Cookout barbecue.
Barbecue. Yes, exactly. You've got it. And I can tell you from the guys at KT, very similar thing. An inspiration, right? And just putting that together brick by brick. There's no limit. So you have the idea, you have the inspiration, now you just follow your passion. How do I actually put that together? What's the recipe? What are the tools and the materials that I need? Make your list, check it off step by step.
I've got a question here. We see the old school chefs, when professional cooking became a thing 150 years ago, there were no women in the kitchen, and in Europe, it was pretty much a white man's thing. Can you tell us what's going on with diversity and equity in Moe's Bagels?
Well, I can tell you at Moe's, as well as everywhere I've ever been, I've been doing this for many, many decades. And everywhere that I've ever worked, it's always been the FBI, the food and beverage industry. It's always been in the food industry where I've experienced the greatest diversity and the greatest inclusion of anything else I've worked in. Because I worked a little bit in advertising, I worked a little bit in publishing, I worked a little bit in construction, and construction was pretty good, but really it's the food business, where it's people from all over the world of any sort of gender background or orientation, where there's always a place and there's always a purpose. It's unquestionably the most inclusive work environment I've ever experienced. I think that's a reason why a lot of people come to food, actually, is because they feel like they can be themselves. They're usually around other people that don't necessarily fit into the typical corporate or white-collar mode. It's people who like to work on their feet a lot. And again, I call working in the food business food sport. Food sport, because it's physical. You're on your feet. You're bouncing off of each other. Every day, you're bouncing off of each other, you know. So it's that dynamic interactivity that makes it, you know, I think fun. And it's unquestionably inclusive because there's always a need for more people to be on the team.
I've got another question. We're kind of running out of time here, and I want to thank you before the question, so genuinely wonderful. Can you tell us a crazy kitchen story?
Oh, I have a lot of those.
Let's hear a crazy one that's PG and not rated R. How about that?
Gosh, I don't know where to
It can also start with the biggest, worst thing ever dropped that you ever saw dropped.
Okay. Drop. So I had a restaurant in New York City for 30 years, about 30 years, and very popular, very busy every night. But it was in an old building that was 200 years old in the West Village of New York City. And Friday night, we were just slamming. It was probably around prime time. I'd say 7:30, 8 o'clock. And the thing that dropped was the kitchen floor. Dropped. The kitchen floor fell in, literally, a section about, probably about 5 feet in diameter at least. And there was a hole going into the basement. So part of the line went down. Oh, this is a true story.
Is this at Tortilla Flats?
At Tortilla Flats in New York City. And then part of the other food station
Steam
dropped
tables.
into the basement. Yeah, the steam table dropped into the basement. So we were down. We couldn't keep working because it's a physical hazard. And I had a restaurant full of people on a Friday night. So we couldn't produce food. You know, obviously we were calling in people to come and help us to make sure no one was going to get hurt. We cleared out the kitchen, and so what I did was I called all of the neighboring restaurants that delivered Chinese and pizza. And I ordered Chinese food and pizzas for, you know, the 100 people that were all packed into the restaurant. And just played the music, poured some drinks, and everybody had takeout till we got the kitchen back together.
And I should tell you, the restaurant he's talking about at the time was like maybe the top 10 trendiest restaurant in America. Think totally flashy, totally cool, but a little bit divey too.
Oh yeah, we
And
were a
it was
roadside
kind of by
dive.
the piers and by the water. It was pretty
No.
amazing. So it was a busy place, I'm sure.
Yeah, we were the one of the busiest restaurants in New York City. Had the top 5% highest chair turn in New York City. I'm going to tell one more story about something that dropped. You could just edit it out. So it's 9/11, 2001, and what drops are the Twin Towers. 2001, 9/11, and the Twin Towers, as you know, get bashed by airplanes. Tragic, horrible thing. And Tortilla Flats is open. I'm driving in to go to work because I do the night shifts. And my partner does the day shift inventory stuff. The towers have been hit, and he's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, well, obviously, send everybody home so they could be with their families. Because this was a freak show. It's inexplicable. Horrific. So I say, send everybody home, you go home to be with the kids, and we'll just figure something out over the phone. Nobody knows what's going on at all. My partner Andy's pulling down the gates to lock up the restaurant. He's down here pulling down the roll gates, and he feels somebody tapping him on the shoulder, and it's our neighbor Tony, who lives across the street from the restaurant, and he says, can we come in? And you look over your shoulder, and there's a parade of all these people covered in gray dust who have just walked from the World Trade Center bombing, right? Completely silent. And they're all just walking towards the restaurant, and he says, can we come in? And we're like, of course. We roll the gates back up, just open up the doors and make everything free for the next week, 2 weeks. Everything was closed from where we were all the way to the World Trade Center. And the only reason why we stayed open, we were the closest place to the World Trade Center that remained open that was not run by the federal government. And the only reason why we stayed open, this is what I learned in this situation. I thought everybody would want to be with their families in their apartments and stuff. People wanted to come together. People wanted to come together in community, to support each other and learn what was happening. So, community, one of the key factors of the food business.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, just so you all know, World Trade Centers were just down the highway from Tortilla Flats. So when people were walking, they had to walk out of New York, so they would walk all the way to the top of Manhattan, across a bridge sometimes to New Jersey. So yours was the obvious place to be. That's a heck of a story of things that have been dropped or fallen. I really appreciate you picking up the ball and helping our kids understand what's going on in the culinary world and in Moe's Broadway Bagels specifically. Thank you for the bagels today. Thank you for your insight and your generous donation of flour and sugar. You guys, let's have a round of applause for
Thank you, guys. Thank you.